Welcome to the DNA Advantage podcast, where you can learn facts about your DNA that can help you live a healthier, longer life, doing all the activities you dream of doing. If you want to gain more control over your health and the factors that influence it, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Lisa Witherow, and I'm so glad you could join me today. Today, the topic is sleep, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the benefits and a case study to give an example. Sleep is often something that we take for granted until we don't get enough of it, and we often forget all of the value that we get from sleep. We need it to support our brain function, physical health, and emotional well-being. We need good quality sleep and adequate amounts of it for proper immune function, memory assimilation, and learning. Poor sleep has been linked to increases in chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, as well as mood changes, impaired cognitive function, and weakened immune function. We really need to prioritize our sleep and make sure that we pay attention to the times when any of those things are suffering. If our immune system seems compromised, if our mood starts to change, or if we start having poor memory, we really need to look to our sleep and determine if we're getting the quality sleep that we need. We need to protect our sleep and understand what our bodies need specifically to maintain healthy rest and recovery. If we do start to experience any problems with sleep, it can be a game changer to sort out the details and learn what's causing the disruption rather than just adding a medication to force sleep. In order to do this, what I recommend is to better understand yourself and the circumstances of your sleep issues so that you can address the root cause. To offer an example, I'll be going through a case study of a client who had her life completely turned upside down by her sleep challenges. So let's jump right into it. This client was in her mid-30s and had always been a very active person. She hiked and gardened and was now dealing with low energy, poor sleep, and low mood issues that had progressively gotten worse over the last 2 years. Her typical activities included daily walks with the dog, hiking at least twice a week, even in cold weather, and biking regularly in nice weather with workouts and swimming at the gym at least 2 to 3 times a week. In the spring and summer, she would spend time outside gardening and was very positive and upbeat year-round. When she was at her worst, she was unable to do much of anything because her energy and her mood became so low. She was so frustrated with her circumstances that she didn't even try to go to the gym anymore. When she forced herself to walk her dog, even a short distance was too much for her, and she stopped going places with friends because she had little interest in doing anything outside of her home. Even the activities that she used to enjoy, she would avoid because she just didn't want to put in the effort. When I asked her what the leading symptom was, she said it was her sleep because it became very difficult, and that seemed to lead to all of her other issues. Every once in a while, she would experience improved sleep, but she still felt very tired when she got up. All days of the week, she felt exhausted. She wasn't aware of any key contributors to her sleep problems, but when we discussed it further, she shared that she had begun working third shift about 18 months before her sleep became difficult. She didn't make the connection because sleep had been fine for over a year after her start date of her new job. We talked about her diet and lifestyle, and I learned that she recently began eating a vegetarian diet about a year ago. She had lived in the same home for almost 4 years with no significant life changes that she could think of at the time. She couldn't think of any times that her sleep was significantly better. She always felt tired and unable to be active like she used to. When I asked her about vacations or going out of town, she really hadn't been going out of town for the last couple years because of her mood and because everything seemed to be so dismal and difficult for her. One of the most obvious suspicions that I had was her sleep schedule, although there was no clear explanation of the first year and a half that had seemed to go well for her. It seemed there may be other circumstances that contributed and caused too much strain on her body, which resulted in her sleep problems. While we waited for her genetics, we did work through some strategies that could support her. We added a room darkening shade under the curtains in her bedroom and gave more of a bedtime routine to help transition her from her work hours into sleep so that she could be more relaxed. We adjusted her diet and her caffeine intake slightly, although she didn't seem to drink caffeine that much because it really didn't help her. I asked her to track her sleep, her mood, and her activity level, as well as her nutrition to get a better feel for any ups and downs that she might have and any changes that seemed to make a difference. It seemed there was a slight improvement falling asleep after she made these changes, but her sleep cycle was still interrupted through the night. Once we got her DNA test data, we got a lot more insight. There are specific genes that can indicate whether we are better off sleeping longer, if we have the advantage of sleeping later, or if we have an extended sleep requirement. So it is very helpful to look at genetics to better understand the system and what you're benefiting from the most. She had no issues with her genes that would indicate advanced sleep phase syndrome or delayed sleep phase disorder, but she also didn't have the night owl gene that would be ideal for her shift work. I was surprised that there weren't any real standouts here for her because working the night shift just seems like a natural issue when you're having sleep problems. So I moved on to look at caffeine. I found that she was a fast metabolizer of caffeine, so that really shouldn't present an issue. She does run through her caffeine pretty quickly. I still don't recommend drinking caffeine close to bedtime, but it shouldn't be a big issue for her as she wasn't drinking that much. There were 2 SNPs that indicated potential sensitivity to electromagnetic field, and that was something I asked her to make some changes to, making sure that she would wear blue blocking glasses the last few hours of her work schedule if she was going to bed right after, or when she got home if she was on her phone or computer, that she would protect her eyes from the blue light. And I also requested that she have her phone on airplane mode if it was next to her bed. The value of that is to keep the electromagnetic influence lower in her bedroom and keep it really calm and give her some uninterrupted sleep. The one major standout was mold sensitivity. When I looked at her genes, her status really stood out in this category. I asked her about mold, and she didn't seem to think there was any issue in her home. But when we talked through water damage and leaks in the home, she did remember that there was a shower leak that they had repaired not too long after they moved in. And I explained that what could happen is if there was a shower leak, the water would not cause mold immediately, but the growth of mold could become the tipping point for her body. It did seem like there was potential for that because of the way they did the repair and then painted, but didn't do any remediation in the walls or ceiling. So there was potential mold there that needed to be discovered, especially because of her sensitivity, and all of the indications pointed to that as a potential source of her sleep issue. When we talked about next steps, we reviewed how to test for the mold and see if there was mold in her bedroom and in the surrounding areas of the water damage. So she purchased those tests to be done within the next few weeks. Ultimately, it was discovered that there was a mold issue in the area where the water damage had occurred in her bedroom, and also a small amount of a different type of mold in the basement. So that was remediated, and unfortunately it did require some disruption to her bedroom because they did have to pull out the ceiling underneath the shower and deal with some renovations of the shower in order to fix it. But while that remediation was going on, she was able to stay somewhere else and give herself a break from that, because when the renovation is going on, it can often stir up the mold spores. And they did run an air purifier in that time frame while they were fixing it and beyond, so that they could clear the air and make sure the mold spores did not spread. When she returned to her home, she was then able to commit to a detoxification of mold, continue her new sleep routine, and benefit from all of the changes that she had made. It was surprising. It was within about 2 months that her sleep schedule corrected. But what was interesting was she realized how sleep deprivation affected her, and she decided to change her work schedule to work an earlier shift so she wouldn't tax her system anymore. And luckily she was able to do that and maintain her same position. That worked really well for her. And she felt like she was even more committed to her health and her sleep now that she knew all of the things that were contributing to her health issues. She was feeling so much better and really had a new lease on life, it seemed, because she had really felt like she was going to continue having these sleep issues and mood problems. It just affected everything in her life, and she didn't feel like she had any desire to do the things she loved. Once she got back to her normal routine and activity level, there was really no stopping her. She felt like herself again, and she felt like she was back in her 20s, which is really rewarding. And I think the lesson here is to really get to know ourselves and look at all of the internal factors, but also the influences from outside that can draw us down and make things more difficult for us without our knowledge. It just becomes a gradual progression when we start having health issues that we accept. And a lot of times we assume that it's due to aging or that it's due to our job, and we just have to accept it. And it's not something that we challenge a lot of times when we believe that. So we really need to look to our mindset and appreciate that we have a lot more control over our health, especially when we know more about our bodies and what the contributing factors are, what our core competencies are, because we can see where some of our shortcomings might be, and we can shore up the system and support ourselves in ways that we would otherwise never know to do. And that really is one of the biggest lessons I learn when I work with clients. It's not the same for everyone, but we all have opportunities to make our lives easier and to support our health in the short term and long term. It gives us an opportunity to really make the choices that benefit us and help us achieve our goals, instead of just allowing things to go down a track that we would otherwise not select. I encourage everyone to do the tracking and do the investigation of what may be contributing if you're having any kind of sleep issues, or if you start to recognize, let's say that you have really good sleep right now, identifying what gives you the best sleep and what is your bedtime when you feel like you get the best sleep. Even what position do you sleep in? What was the temperature in your home? And what time did you eat last before you went to bed? So many things contribute to our sleep that we really need to appreciate and acknowledge, because when things are going really well, we need to honor that and document that So if things start to get difficult, we can reflect on what may have changed and then revert back to what was working best for us. If there are external elements that are making a difference, we can certainly investigate that too. And in many cases, we can make adjustments. Hopefully, this case study is helpful for you, just giving you some ideas of what can be contributors to good quality sleep. And if we are dealing with diet changes or environmental changes or schedule adjustments, we have to appreciate whether they're contributing or detracting from our sleep. So that's our case study for today. I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much, and I hope you can join me again next week. Thanks so much for joining me to learn about DNA health. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you'd like to join my free community where we delve into more details about DNA, just click Community below.